Today I'm back with another easy fermented drink, Pulque. Made from fermented agave sap, this drink, lost in time, is simple to make, relatively inexpensive, and is a fermented beverage so unique it's not available at most stores. I'm Trimusho, and this is The Brew Show. Let's make some Pulque. The agave plant is a source for many popular alcoholic beverages, from tequila to mezcal. But did you know there's another? Pulque. This delicious beverage is made from fermented agave sap or honey water. It's spontaneously fermented, creating a milky, probiotic-rich alcoholic beverage. Often referred to as the drink of gods, the history of Pulque dates back nearly 2,000 years. Originating from central Mexico, Pulque was often drank in rituals and religious gatherings. Over the years, Pulque grew in popularity, with pulquerias popping up throughout Mexico. Until that is, a new drink came into town in the 19th century.
Who's that Pokemon?
That drink, my friends, is known as cerveza, or beer. That's right, after several smear campaigns from the beer industry, Pulque sales greatly declined, as it became synonymous with the lower class. Nowadays, Pulque is near forgotten, with only a few pulquerias left in Mexico. It's rare to find Pulque outside of Mexico for a couple of reasons. The first is because of its source, the maguey, or century agave plant. These agaves can take up to 14 years to reach their peak before harvest. During harvest, the flower stalk is cut off and the sap is collected from the center of the plant. This sap then naturally ferments that is anywhere from 2 to 8% ABV. This collection and fermentation process makes the Pulque have a short shelf life. The recipe I'll show you today is inspired by traditional Pulque, as I don't have any century agave plants to harvest. My neighbor has one, but I probably shouldn't destroy their landscaping. So I'll be using store-bought 100% Agave Nectar. Our Pulque will be more clear and a bit sweeter than traditional Pulque, but it will definitely be delicious all the same. Before we get started, please take a second to subscribe, so you can learn more about how to make fermented beverages like this at home. Alright, now let's get into the recipe. We're going to make a 2-gallon batch of Pulque. Feel free to scale this up or down depending on how much you want to make. We start with 1.75 gallons of distilled water for a clean base. We then add 44 ounces of organic, raw, blue agave nectar. Agave nectar is the closest thing we can get to agave sap. Agave syrup is fine to use as well, but it's more processed than the nectar. This ratio of water to agave nectar will give you an original gravity of 1.050. You can play around with the amount of agave to make the final drink have a lower or higher final ABV. Next, we'll need to add some nutrients to help feed the yeast. This is needed because the agave nectar is low in nutrients to support healthy yeast growth. In total, I'm using 2 teaspoons of DAP or Diammonium Phosphate and 3 grams of Fermaid O. But I'm going to split the nutrients and add half of them now. The other half I used in the yeast starter, which I made one day before. Cue flashback. In order to ensure the yeast has a healthy start to ferment the agave, I created a yeast starter with some DME. I've shown this process in my gingerbread saison video as well, if you're not familiar. Once the yeast starters cool down, I pitch the yeast. I'm using EC1118 Champagne Yeast. This yeast ferments out very dry and tends to have some fruity esters that will complement the agave nicely. But feel free to try some other yeast that you might have on hand. At this point, I will also add the other half of the nutrients that I add on recipe day. I then cover that with tin foil and give it a shake every hour or so until the next day. As you can see, the yeast has started to come alive and foam up, which means it's ready to be added to our main ingredients. Have you heard of Pulque before? Are there any cool fermented drinks from your country that I should try? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Now just give it a good shake to incorporate oxygen, pop an airlock on, and set it in a cool, dark place for about 10 days, or until fermentation activity seems to slow down. After the 10 days, I took a final gravity reading of 0.996, meaning this Pulque comes in at 7.2% ABV. Traditionally, Pulque is not heavily carbonated, so I decided to bottle up half of my batch with priming sugar and half without, as an experiment. If you want to know more about bottling your ferments and homebrews, check out my bottling and kegging video. Once the bottles are capped, I let them sit for 2 weeks, at which point they're ready to drink. The pulque cleared out quite well, especially compared to traditional pulque. It's almost clear with a slight straw-like color. And on the nose, I get some fruity esters coming from the yeast. The flavor is almost reminiscent of sake. It's slightly sweet and fruity with notes of honey, peach, and apricot. It's light and crisp, unlike its traditional partner, which can sometimes be a bit sour and thick. You can of course drink the pulque by itself, but another way to traditionally enjoy pulque is to blend it with fruit and sugar, which is called Pulque Curado. Some popular choices are pineapple, strawberry, celery, blackberry, or guava. You can also enjoy it with a splash of tequila and a squeeze of lime. I really hope you give this recipe a try. While it's not a perfect replica of traditional pulque, it's a great option for only using 3 easy-to-find main ingredients. I hope this inspires you to try fermenting something unique and different than beer and cider. Pulque is delicious, easy to make, and great to have on hand when you want to sip on a little something special. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And while you're here, check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching.